All right, Predators. So in today's video, what we're going to get into is we're going to get into the process of setting all the axes for your bow sight. For this one specifically is the Dialed Arxos sight. And this, for me, was my first time ever doing it. I'd seen many videos on it, and so I wanted to try to show from a beginner's perspective of trying to do this. Usually I just take it to my bow shop to do it, but one of the bow shops that I actually got my bow from too, they didn't even start to. They just kind of accepted that out of the box it was going to be perfectly good to go and just threw it on there. So they didn't actually even go through the process of it. Now I've been shooting for a while and it's been pretty good. And you know, where I usually shoot is flat land, so it's not a huge deal whenever my third axis isn't set. So whenever I went through this process, really what I was trying to do is I'm trying to get prepared for anything. If I wanted to shoot out of a tree stand or something like that, I wanted to make sure that that third axis is set so that my bubble stays level. Overall, the process went really smooth, except for, you know, some of the tools that I was using for the third axis. The most useful tool in this whole process for me was the Mathews ShotSense. And I know, like, if you buy this thing directly from a bow shop or you buy it from Mathews, it is expensive. I lucked out and I found one on eBay that I bought secondhand, and it was only 170 bucks. And I tell you what, for that price, this is an incredibly useful thing. Like, you know, you spend $200 on a release, you spend $150 on stabilizers, you spend a lot of money on these other things. This just kind of goes in that. If you have a Mathews bow, this ShotSense is very, very useful. And not only for, you know, your shot accuracy and shot trajectory, but for this third axis leveling, because the level on it is highly accurate. It goes within 0.2 of a degree in accuracy. Like, that's even closer than me trying to like look at a bubble and look at two lines and kind of guess, okay, I think it's closer to this line, it's not closer to this line. You know, I feel like it's so much more accurate, and it honestly, it made the whole process more precise and more, I mean, just better. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into setting your axes, your first, second, and third axis with the Dialed Arxos sight, and let's show that process. What's up, guys? Today we're going to be doing just a little quick bow tuning thing, and so I found a couple of really cool tools that I think are going to be super helpful whenever you're trying to tune your bow and just make sure you're really dialed in for the upcoming season. Without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into the first of these tools, and that is this right here. This is the OMP VersaCradle. All right, and this is a really helpful bow vise, and this is really going to help me just be able to mount and level my bow. And this thing is super strong. With just a little bit of tension on it, I can really lock my bow down in just about any position for working on it. And it makes things so much easier than trying to hold it. Now, typically, you'd see that the VersaCradle is mounted, and I used to have this actually mounted to my tool bench. My toolbox basically has like a wooden top on it, you know, that I can raise up and down, and I had this mounted to that. Where I've moved to now, I don't have the ability. I don't even have a garage here anymore, so although I do have several acres of land, which is a great thing, but now that I don't have that, I just made this little rig right here. Basically what it is, all it really is just a piece of wood here. I've got this screwed into, and then I've got two clamps on it that hold it in place and hold it flush with my countertop here in my kitchen. And then I've got the ability to adjust my vise here and adjust the position of my bow. Now what I can do, now that I've got this thing mounted, is I'm going to use another really incredible tool off the bat, and that is the Mathews ShotSense. So basically with the ShotSense, I've got the ability to really get in there and get some detailed information about the bow. One of the really cool things that it has is it has a built-in level. I can scroll over down here to bow level and hit the second or the bottom button here, and look, it shows me a level here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to adjust the VersaCradle down here to be able to make that level right there, and that's going to be a great and super accurate determination for how level my bow is. So I've got it on here, and so I'm going to adjust this, and so I'm unlocking the VersaCradle here, and I'm just making an adjustment. I'm watching that. So now I'm almost there. So I just put a little bit of tension off of the VersaCradle, and it allows me to make these small adjustments. Okay, so I'm at 0 on the incline, and now it's telling me it's tilted left 1.8 degrees, so that's left and right. Okay, So now I'm going to make an adjustment here. Okay, so I'm at left 0, 0, 0. And so this is way more accurate than any bubble level is going to be able to get, right? Because this is telling me within not only like kind of I'm close to that line, I'm not very close to that line. This is telling me almost exactly where everything's sitting within a 1/10 of a degree. So again, I can really get precise with this. So there you can see I'm within about 0.2 to 0.4 degrees, which is incredibly close. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my next really cool tool. This one, I tried it out and I wanted to like it. This is the podium levels, the podium archer thing. Basically what it is a string level, right? So I take this and I put it on the string and I can really make sure that my string is perfect and level and everything. But the problem with this is that this magnet that's supposed to hold the string inside of there, it kind of sits at an angle like this. Like it doesn't sit perfectly flush when it's on the string, right? So here's a better view of it, a little close up. You can see that it's not perfectly flush on the string. It does a fairly good job, but it's just not quite as precise as I'd like it to be. So the other thing that I like that is this right here, and this is the Hamskea. This is the Gen 2 third axis level here. And this thing has not only the round bubble in it, but it's also got the level bubble here, and it's got the bar here for doing the third axis adjustment, but it's also got this right here, which is the string level. So now what I'm going to do over here is I'm just going to clamp this on. So it has basically this little screw on here, and I can just tighten it on here. So as we get into the video, I wanted to talk about a real quick sponsor, and that is Phorm supplements. I've been using Phorm for almost a couple of years now, and this has really changed the game for me. I have been able to hit the gym harder and really get out there and make myself healthier. And this is just, it really helped me to do that as efficiently as possible. This is the Megawatt pre-workout. I love this because it's not super caffeine heavy. They also have Project One, which I usually use if I'm doing a really heavy lifting day, like I'm trying to go for PRs. I will have the Project One because it has about 300 milligrams of caffeine. Megawatt, on the other hand, only has about 150 milligrams of caffeine. Hey, I'm a caffeine addict. Like, I'm not sensitive to caffeine at all. But this gives me a ton of supplements to help me really hit the gym, get a good pump, get my muscles to full fatigue so that they can grow stronger and do well in the gym. They also have the, like I said, Project One, which is the high stimulant, very hard hitting workout. And then they also have the Enduraformance, which is a caffeine free version of the pre-workout, which I use actually whenever I'm going on a bike ride. So I posted on my story, I think a little while ago, where I went on a 25-mile bike ride through the city of Houston, and that Enduraformance really helped me push through. Creatine, as they're finding out, is amazing for your brain. So I'm not getting any younger. I know you aren't getting any younger. So this is something you should start while you're young and help your brain develop and grow. And basically, it's almost like a nootropic. The thing is super, super good for you. Take like 5 to 10 milligrams a day. This stuff is flavorless. You can mix it up in just about any drink that you drink throughout the day. Wouldn't put it in carbonated drinks, but you can put it in just about any drink that you drink throughout the day. And this is really going to help you not only with your muscle function, but also with your neurological development as you age. So check the Phorm supplements out. They're really good. I highly recommend it, guys. And if you check out the links in the description below, you can get a link directly from me to support this channel, because I don't use these because they got me this sponsorship and everything. I use these because I believe in them. I have a whole cabinet full of their supplements because they're just that good. So check out Phorm. Thanks for watching that, guys, and I appreciate you for watching this video in general. And without further ado, let's do further. And that right there, I feel, is like a much better level. All right, so now my bubble level is showing that it's in the middle. Okay, you gotta make sure that's tight on the string there. I'm showing that right here, the ShotSense is showing me that if I don't touch it, that is. It's so sensitive and so accurate that it can actually detect the bubble or the level wobbling on here a little bit. It's hovering between 0.0 and 0.2, so it's very, very accurate. And again, this is perfectly level here. Okay, so now that that's perfectly level and everything in here, what's really interesting is that this is showing me 0.0, 0.2, but over here on the string level, it's kind of hovering on the line a little bit. And so, well, now that I just moved it a little bit, it now settled in, and now it's showing level here. But it's kind of interesting how little things like that can tweak the bubble and make it look off. So over here again, I'm set at 0.2, somewhere between there. It's an accuracy of basically 0.2 of a degree. So now that I got that set, I'm going to make a couple of adjustments to my sight just to make sure I'm all set up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check the second axis, and this is really easy because with this in the vise, I can basically move that second axis and make sure that everything's straight in line. If you didn't know, this is the Dialed Arxos sight. It's got an easy second axis adjustment. The third axis adjustment is actually not very simple. It's actually pretty complex. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that because it's not a very easy setting to change, because I have to bring my windage all the way out in order to access the screws to change the third axis. All right, so I'm going to come in over here to the second axis. I'm going to loosen this top screw a little bit, just a little bit. And then I'm going to loosen this bottom one just a little bit. So this bottom one is the one that actually moves the sight left and right. So that's the one I'm going to be more concerned with. Okay, so now I'm just looking at the level in the bubble here. I'm going to make sure it's accurate. So I can adjust it just a little bit at a time. So I'm basically just grabbing the scope housing now that those are a little bit loose. Again, just a tiny bit on the top one, just so it'll move a little bit. I want to make sure it's not too loose there. And then the bottom one being loose is what allows you to adjust the axis this way and that way. So I'm just going to look through here. The thing I love about this dialed scope is there's a little tiny notch right there, right in the middle of that bubble level, so you can see very accurately that you're good on your second axis. So okay, so that is sitting almost perfectly level right there. So now I'm going to lock that in place. Okay. After you lock it in place, just snug it up. You don't have to really crank it down. Okay. And double check, make sure nothing's moved, and it's good. So the next thing that we're going to do is now we've got the second axis set. I'm going to set the third axis. Now, typically the third axis is something you want to set while you're at full draw. But in order to check this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I do it here, and I'm going to do it in the bow vise first to get it, make sure it's in the right ballpark, and then I'm going to go outside. I'm going to go to full draw and check it again. So in order to do that, we need a little room to work, so I'm going to loosen this. Okay, I'm going to turn the bow down a little bit. And again, I'm looking at my level. So I'm going to look at my Mathews ShotSense right here, and I'm going to tell me to make sure it's not canted left or right, and we're going to take a look at that. So that's pretty damn close right there. Okay, so I got this thing at an angle here. Hope you can see that really well. So I've got the bow almost laid completely down here. I'm at 70 degrees and I'm at 0 degrees on the left to right tilt. So that's why I think this Mathews ShotSense is a good help for this. There's a lot of other things that goes into it. I'm going to be doing a full review on this thing later, but right now I'm just worried about this. All right, so now I'm going to check the third axis. Now the third axis thing is a pain in the rear, and I'll tell you why. With this sight specifically, it's a pain in the rear, and that's because this is the tool that it requires. I don't know if you can even see that on there accurately, but basically, I don't know, is that focusing on it? Yep. So this is the little tool that it requires, and that's like a hex. Let me see what this is. 1.3. The site says 1.5, but it's a 1.3 actually. So, all right, so from this camera view, you're gonna see that this right here, this is the top of the bow, so the top of the sight right here. The screws are way inside of here, so how do I get to those, right? So the only way to get to those screws is to throw my windage knob all the way out. So I'm pushing this thing all the way out. So there's one down here on the bottom, and then there's one up here on the top, okay? So you see, I can't even get to that, and I've got my windage dial all the way out, okay? So in this case, what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to loosen this knob a little bit at the top. Don't loosen the bottom one, because I don't want to, again, throw off my second axis, right? I can push this out a little bit, and now I have access to that spot there. So you see, I can get my tiny itty bitty little screwdriver down in there. So after I adjust this, I'm gonna go back and check my second axis again. So again, I'm double checking. Yeah, we're still accurate on the level there, still right at 0. So now what I'm gonna do is I can see my bubble here. So my bubble here is off to this side. So what I wanna do is I wanna twist the sight this way, like downward. So basically what I wanna do now is I've got 2 screws in here, and in the orientation they're gonna push against each other. So I want to loosen one and tighten the other. So if I need to move it, let's say I need to move it this way, right? Then I want to loosen this one right here and then tighten the other one. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna loosen that, okay? Just a couple little like half turns. And then I'm gonna tighten this one on this side. And I can already see the bubble moving, and it's back into the middle right there. All right. So again, I loosen this one a little bit and I tighten that one. Now I'm just going to make sure that there's no slack in either of them. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten that one down. And since this bottom one was pushing against it, then whenever I tighten this one, it's not going to go anywhere and hold in place. So the bottom one was holding against it, so I did that. And then this one right here, once I've got this one buried up against it and it's basically holding it in that position there, then I can tighten this one and we're good to go. Okay, so now you can see the bubble is right in the middle of the level. Okay. All right, so now that I got the bubble nice and level there, I'm gonna go take it outside and I'm gonna check it again. So what I need to, for this part, what I need to check it is I need a straight line. I've got a lot of straight lines here. I got a straight line in the outside of the house that I know is perfectly level. And so I'm gonna go check it against that. So I'm gonna draw, and I'm just basically what I'm gonna do is at full draw, I'm gonna drop my bow down, okay? Bending at the waist here, keeping everything steady. So I'm gonna drop at the waist here. And then whenever I get towards the bottom there, following that same thing, I'm going to make sure that the bubble is level, right? So let's go ahead and bring this back up. Honestly, this third axis adjustment is pretty finicky. So, you know, make sure you've got plenty of time basically to mess with this, because it's going to take a little while. It's going to be a lot of little small adjustments back and forth. So don't fret it if it starts getting frustrating. Just know it's something that takes some time, okay? So now typically I would want to move my sight back into the middle, but I want to check this third axis first and make sure everything's good before we go there. Now the other thing this bubble level has here, this third axis adjustment here, is you can clamp this onto a sight and then again check and make sure everything's level. So I'm going to clamp it on the top of the sight rail here. Okay, so at this point in the video, I went and I had the Hamskea third axis leveling tool and I was using it. This thing was giving me a lot of issues. So real quick, I'll just give a fast rundown of it. So it's got the ability to open this thing up so you can clamp onto the string. You also can use that as a clamp to clamp onto the sight rail. It's got this vertical pin here that you can adjust. And basically what that's to do is to give you, again, the point where you follow down the long axis of that level line so that you can make sure that the bubble is staying, right? So the problem I had with this thing is that it's made out of machined aluminum, I believe here, but there is no grip on this. It is slick on the inside. And also, so is the Dialed Arxos sight rail. That angled sight rail there, it is slick. So even if I clamp this on, once I get it clamped on there, like I can't tighten this knurled knob anymore, right? It won't go anymore. And so I tighten it onto the sight rail and then it would just slide around. And so that's kind of useless, right? So I tried for about an hour fiddling with this thing to get it on there in a way that made sense. So I tried putting it on the sight rail. I tried putting it on the riser. I could not get this thing to stay stable anywhere I put it. I even messed with tightening up the screws and stuff. None of that would like get this thing to stay level. It was always had some kind of play in it, so I just didn't trust it. Okay, so I'm really glad that I had the Mathews ShotSense on there to help me level, kind of pre-level that on there, so I can make sure that even whenever I tilted the bow down, you know, that it was at level whenever I had it tilted in the OMP Versa cradle, and that made it to where I could kind of preset and get in the ballpark with that third axis. Now, a lot of people say you should not set the third axis unless you're at full draw, like if you've checked it at full draw. And to some extent I agree, but to some extent I also disagree, because I was able to get it so close that I just had to make literally, I turned the screw, if I were to turn the screw, it was about that much on one side and then the opposite of that side, literally not even a quarter of a turn, and I was perfectly level on the third axis. So I set that in the vise, and then I checked it by doing the draw. Like some people say, you have to come to full draw first, drop down, then do a setting, and you're doing a lot of gross settings. So you'll have to draw, drop the bow, check the third axis and adjust it, go ahead and draw the bow again, check the third axis, make another adjustment. And sometimes they'll have to do this 2 or 3 times to get it right. I was able to get it right. It was almost exactly perfect on the first try, just by setting it in the OMP Versa cradle. And then I made it just a tiny adjustment, because it was like here when I was setting the third axis, it was like, basically, I can't even get it there. It was like hugging the line like that or something. It was just a little tiny bit off, right? And so I just made this smallest adjustment that one time, and the third axis was perfect. So if you're setting third axis, test this out on your bow. So if you have a bow vise, or if you have a hooter shooter, or if you have a bow press that goes vertical or something like that, try it in there first, get that perfectly set, and then try to draw and everything. I think I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to try to modify this in order to make it work. I'm going to rough up the inside of it so it has some grip on it, or do something, because this just honestly did not work. Anywhere I put it, I could not get it to stay on my bow. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I've got a line on the wall here that is perfectly perpendicular. That is just a window frame. And so I'm just going to draw at that. I'm actually going to, instead of using my thumb button, just because I'm indoors, I'm actually going to use my trigger, because I feel like this is a little bit safer, and I won't accidentally release the arrow if I bump it whenever I'm letting down or something. Don't want to shoot my stereo, my record player over there. So I can keep my finger behind the trigger here, nice and safe. So we draw back, line up, okay. And right here in this comfortable position, I'm perfectly level. So now I'm just going to bend, follow that line down, and I'm still perfectly level all the way up and down. Okay, so that's what you need to know. If it wasn't perfectly level, then I would definitely go and make some adjustments. I would tweak that again a little bit to make it a little bit more accurate. But I'm pretty close there. I'm gonna make just a tiny adjustment. Okay, and then I'm gonna do it again. Okay, again, starting level here. Following that line down. Okay. All right, so third axis is set. Now I want to bring my sight, my windage in and everything, so I can reset all that. All right, and one thing that's kind of cool about this is whenever I bring that third axis, I bring my windage back in, it will protect that third axis adjustment, so I don't have to worry about losing that if I'm bumping it on brush or anything like that. Okay? So now that I've got all that set, I can basically go back and I can sight in my bow now with basically the assurance that now everything is in square and in line with the bow, so that whenever I'm shooting, if I'm shooting up or down hills or out of a tree stand, that everything's going to be lined up and I can be much more accurate with my shots. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming along with this journey. This was a wild one. This is my first time ever doing this by myself. Some of the things were not working very well. Like one of the things that was not working well was this. I feel like the bubble was a little off, and I feel like, this, whoop, see, I almost dropped it there. but I feel like also that this mechanism here is kind of gummed up and it's not working right. And it's also got a little bit of play in it. So I don't know if it's truly square or not. I don't trust it, honestly, but I'm sure if you bought a brand new one, you might be better off, but I'm not gonna put my trust in it. The main thing I wanna know is that if I go in a perfectly straight line whenever I drop my bow, then I wanna make sure that that bubble right here on my sight stays true. So thanks for watching, Predators, and as always, keep defying the odds.